Today we are talking about
horror remakes.
Once again, I've done a video similar to this before, but this one is going to be part 2. I brought different guests along the way this time to talk about their opinions of horror remakes. When it comes to horror remakes, I feel like it's been a subject where you either love it or you hate it. In my opinion, if horror remakes are done really well, I feel like they are actually pretty memorable and usually kind of stand toe to toe with the original. Maybe not beat out the original, but are usually toe and toe. Like, you know, you can watch the remake and you can watch the original, you know, on an equal basis. They're both entertaining. But when they get them wrong, they get them really wrong. And I'm just going to throw out my picks later on in the video. But let's get on to our guests in this video and let them talk about their experiences with horror remakes.
Hey up everyone, hope you're all doing well and hope you're all nice and safe and cuddly and looking after each other. Horror remakes. When they first started doing them, I actually really liked them. I thought it was a great idea because as much as I liked the originals, they were doing like an updated version of the film. Now, I think they've done too many, and I think it needs to stop. Don't get me wrong, there is some great ones out there, but there is also some absolutely abysmal ones. The first one I remember was probably I think it was 1998, it'll be in the remake of Psycho. That's the oldest one I can remember offhand. And I absolutely love Psycho. I love all 4 of the Psycho films. So when that came out, I was so excited to watch it. And when I first watched it, yeah, I enjoyed it. But a lot of people absolutely hated it. And the more I've watched it, I don't hate it. But if I want to watch Psycho, I'll watch the original. Because all they've done with that film is basically shoot it as best they can, shot for shot, and 99% kept the original script. And I don't like Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates. He's not menacing enough. Norman Bates should be like a little more, you know, creepy and wimpier type of thing. Totally wrong choice for me, that was. And then the next one I can remember was My Bloody Valentine. Now, I loved that. I went to the cinema and seen that in 3D, and I got the 3D Blu-ray. But my biggest issue with that, there is a scene missing, and I know it exists. Because both myself and the missus remember it very well. The effect was excellent. Wasn't on any physical release that I've seen. Nobody knows it. Nobody knows anything about it. Weird. And then it seemed to sort of snowball after that. It was like more and more and more were coming out. Oh, I've remembered another one that was before My Bloody Valentine. It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, for me, that is definitely one of, if not the best one. I love that one. And the prequel to it, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, I think that's excellent as well. You could watch that, then watch the second one, and just watch it all as one long film. I personally like to watch the remake before the prequel, though, because it's got more of an impact in you are watching it thinking, how did that happen? How did he get in that wheelchair with no legs like that? If you watch the prequel, you find out. So although you could watch it that way as one film, I personally think it's best if you watch it that way. But yeah, I do think that they've outstayed their welcome a bit now, to be honest. People always say, oh, it's not a remake, it's a reboot. It doesn't matter. For me, it's the same thing. You're copying a film, you're remaking it, or you're reimagining it, which is like a reboot type of thing. I've got no problem with sequels as long as they have a reasonable time to stop. But, yeah, the remakes now, I think it's just... I think there's something new. It's time to move on. The new Exorcist that's come out, I've never had anybody like it yet. Everybody's complaining about it. Even though the Steelbook sold out. Or the special edition one has anyway. But, yeah, I mean, I actually was all for them originally, but now I'm like, oh, wait. Stop now. You've done your remakes. Like I said, there's good and bad, as well as Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The remade, The Hills of Eyes, The Fog. That is abysmal. The remade. What was the other one they've done? Last House on the Left. They've done so many horror remakes now. But for me personally, I think my favourite two of the remakes are definitely the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one from 2003, I think it came out. And the 2006 or 7, whenever that came out, 2006, The Hills of Eyes, because they're just absolutely phenomenal, both of them. I sometimes tally, do I like the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre more than the original? And then I sometimes change my mind and say no. So I personally think, for different reasons, I like the original and the remake level. Another one I like as well, but it's not one of my final two, Fright Night. I love the Fright Night remake, but that gets a lot of crap. But I do like the original much, much more. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the other one, The Hills of Eyes, which I do actually like better than the original. And I do really like the original. But the remake for me is phenomenal. The two worst ones I can think of are definitely The Fog, because I didn't even last 20 minutes. It was garbage. It was nothing at all like the original from what I could see. And the John Carpenter original is just amazing. There's nothing like that, so I turned it off. I hated it. And the other one, oh God, there's probably more bad than good, to be fair. Because I can't think of them all, I'm going to go with Psycho. Not because I hate it, but because it's just absolutely, totally pointless. Waste of the time. They're going to change it a little bit, done something slightly different with it, but they didn't. So yeah, there you go. That's my worst two. Psycho, The Fog are my best two. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills of Eyes. And I apologise if I've waffled, but thank you all for listening.
Everybody, thanks Jason, thanks for the invite and getting me involved in this. So horror remakes, what are my thoughts on it? Well, if the script's right and you've been able to pay homage to the original, then yeah, why not? Give it a go. Give it kind of a fresh look for a new audience. Because if a horror film's come out in the late 70s, early 80s, which is when the slasher, I guess, horror franchises kind of took off, you want to get an audience from the here and now more interested in going back to that. So how are you going to do that? Well, give them something new and go, well, this is from the original source, and then they could go back to look at it. Now, for me personally, I am a big horror fan, more gore than psychological, but I wouldn't say I'm a massive horror fan, but I do like a good horror film, as long as it's not crap, let's be honest. So when Jason's asked me to do this, I thought, you know what, I went through my collection and I've got 4 films that I'll recommend, but I'm going to put them down to 2. So the 2 films that, on the outside of it, first of all, I'm going to go for Straw Dogs. If it's going to focus, there we go. Straw Dogs remake of the Dustin Hoffman one. Highly recommend this one. I really enjoyed the original, but I also like this one. So that's my first one. And the second one is going to be Friday the 13th. It's not really a remake. It's just a kind of a continuation. You know, Jason's already there. There's no backstory. I just really enjoy this. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest of fans of the Friday the 13th franchise. Yeah, they're all right. You go in there, you can watch them. But, you know, I have them, but yeah, they're just a bit too cheesy for me. Yeah, so those are my two outside ones. So my first favourite horror remake is going to be Evil Dead. Yep. I really like this film. I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to probably get criticised for this, but I'm not a big fan of Evil Dead 2, and Evil Dead Army of Darkness. I appreciate that they've come in and Sam Raimi did a good job in them, and they've created a franchise and everything, but give me something up to date. Give me something here and now, and this is brilliant. Thoroughly enjoy this. This is very much exactly, as I said earlier on, a remake of the other original, but like I said, it has a few different changes to it, which is why I like this one. You know, the over-the-top blood and gore at the end just makes this, for me, a fantastic film. So that is The Evil Dead, which I recommend as a horror remake. And my favourite horror remake is The Crazies. Yes, the remake of George A. Romero's The Crazies. I watched this ages ago, ages in age when I was younger. Didn't realise it was actually a remake. I then watched the original, and I couldn't get through the original because I didn't think it was very good. But this one, this is a, I wouldn't say guilty pleasure, because it's nothing to be guilty about, but I really enjoy this. It's so much better than the original. It's just got more action, more suspense. It's just an overall better film. So there you go. So those are my two horror remake favourites. With regards to not very good horror remakes, as you say, it goes rubbish. I can't think. I mean, first of all, Psycho, the one with Vince Vaughn in it, shot-for-shot remake of Hitchcock's original. Yeah, not for me. I didn't like that one. I didn't mind the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I know I'm going to get criticised for that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to remakes that aren't very good, I can't think of any. I think it's more the fact that if I've seen them, I'll block them out. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to anything else. I enjoy the ones which I own, and the ones that I don't own, I kind of forget about. And the only the really, really bad ones that I can think of that people bring up a lot is Psycho, as well as Nightmare on Elm Street. But I really don't mind Nightmare on Elm Street. I own it, and I'm not ashamed to say that I own it. But for me, I think the worst remake has to be Psycho.
So, horror remakes for me, yeah, generally the kiss of death. There are so many beloved horror films that are original pieces that I absolutely love, but remakes, yeah, gonna talk about two of my least favourite ones. I've not seen that many bad ones. I haven't seen like the remake of John Carpenter's The Fog or anything like that, but for me, these ones, I do still like these two movies, but in terms of remake, they just don't capture anything, you know, the magic that the original had for me. So the first one I've got is Child's Play. Yeah, this is just bang average for me. Not bad, not great, but again, completely misses the mark of that original film. I'm not a massive fan of the Chucky series, but I do love the first movie. And yeah, this remake is just a pale imitation of it. It lacks any sort of fun for me that I get from the original film. None of the characters in it are likable. The doll itself is just, yeah, it doesn't work as a villain for me. But I do kind of still like the film for what it is. But yeah, that's one of my, you know, least favourite horror remakes. So yeah, that's the Child's Play film. So the next one that isn't really one of my favourites is the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I love that series as opposed to the Child's Play one. I really, really do like it. I think there are definitely better movies in it than worse ones. And yeah, the first film is a horror classic. One of the best films ever, directed by Wes Craven. He just really got it. All of this, you know, the way that that movie's directed to look like dream sequences is just absolutely amazing. And this one for me misses the mark. Again, it's not a film that I absolutely despise at all. I think this movie's okay, but as a remake from the original, yeah, it fails for me. It doesn't capture anything that the original has. Is nowhere near comes close to touching it or holding the candle to it. So yeah, just a really, really pale, poor imitation. It does have, I do like the ending to this film. I do think that's creative, but other than that, yeah, doesn't work for me as much. So yeah, I'm always going to choose the original over this one, definitely. So yeah, that is my second worst pick, A Nightmare on Elm Street. So moving on to two of my favourites. Yeah, the first one I'm going to go with is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. Yeah, I do like the original film from '74. I think it's a great horror film. It plays on your mind. It gets your mind going places that you don't want it to by showing you, you know, less is more with that film. This one, for me, one thing that this movie has over the original for me is atmosphere. You just really feel the Texan heat in this movie. Characters are dripping with sweat, and you just really feel it, that sticky atmosphere, and it's really, really horrible. The hitchhiker scene in this, for me, is better than the original as well. I think what they did, kind of flipping it on its head, was absolutely brilliant. It has that amazing tracking shot. And yeah, it's just, Leatherface is an absolute brute in this movie. Yeah, it just really, really works for me. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love the opening and closing to this with sort of like the found footage aspect to it. And yeah, I just think it's a fantastic, fantastic remake. Really, really works for me. But yeah, it's not as good as the original again, but as a film on its own, it's really, really entertaining, and I just really enjoy it. So that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. And my second pick for best remake is a very, very popular one. It goes without saying, and it's David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986. Yeah, an absolute technical marvel in special effects. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, this movie. Just a great mental and physical descent that Seth Brundle goes through in this movie. It's horrifying on every aspect of it, from a mental and a visual, you know, aspect as a viewer. It really, really works. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. But the original is nothing to turn your nose up at all. The Vincent Price film is still really, really good. It's more of a body swap type of thing, but this movie, it just brought something really, really new to the table with it, and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. The gore effects are the star of the show. The music in it is fantastic. The acting in it is brilliant, and I just really, really enjoy this one. So yeah, that's my second pick for best horror remake, The Fly. So yeah, those are my thoughts on horror remake, guys. So thanks very much, and take care.
So that's our guests in this video. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in with the discussion and letting us know your opinions and your thoughts. Of course, if you're watching this video, let us know your opinions on this topic in the comments down below. But yeah, horror remakes for me. I've almost become like this person where I kind of like the majority of remakes that I've seen. Some are a bit crap and some are a bit kind of not quite there, kind of half-baked, but I feel a lot of them I really enjoy. The Friday the 13th remake, even though it's not really a remake of the original Friday the 13th, it's more of kind of, you know, a best of when it concerns kind of a remix of those first three movies. But I feel like Derek Mears' Jason Voorhees absolutely just is terrifying in that film. He's got everything that I love from the franchise in it. You've got your characters you kind of root for, you've got your dickhead characters and you can't wait for them to be murdered. And you've got Jason Voorhees being an absolute terrifying force in the film. And in the 2009 Friday the 13th remake, he is a terrifying force. He's a bit more intelligent in this film. He's more of a hunter-gatherer. He's more kind of methodical in that he traps his prey. Yeah, the Friday the 13th remake surprised me how good it was, and I never understand the actual hatred that film has, because in line with the rest of the franchise, it's pretty much more the same, and I don't understand why people hate it, because I thought it was great. The opening 20 minutes of that film is absolutely fantastic, and yeah, you get Sackboy Jason, which I love, and yeah, he looks terrifying in that. And like I said, Derek Mears as Jason in that movie he just embodies just the terrifying ferocity of that character, and I love it. Other remakes that have come out recently that I've kind of changed my opinions on, like the Child's Play remake when that came out, and I watched it for the first time. I generally thought it was an interesting and cool spin on the Child's Play source material. Obviously in the remake it's not going to be you transferring your spirit into the doll. It's got this more kind of like rogue AI aspect to it, which I feel, especially in 2023, it does speak volumes for where it looks like we're going with technology and stuff like that. But I feel like this film does a pretty good job at translating the Child's Play story to this kind of like, you know, rogue tech angle. However, on a rewatch, it didn't really do much for me on a rewatch, and I don't know why. Maybe I just wasn't feeling it at the time, or I'm just so in love with the original Chucky that we got, you know, Brad Dourif voicing it. And I don't think it helps with the remake that the Chucky doll's design is absolutely terrible. One of the worst parts of the film for me is the Child's Play doll, is the Chucky doll. It just looks awful. So maybe on a rewatch, after watching, you know, some of the older films, I feel like it might have lost its luster for me. But it's still an okay remake. It still is serviceable for what it's trying to do. And it's bringing something new to the table, which I always implore remakes to do. As for like top tier, GOAT level remakes, we've got to talk about the Evil Dead 2013 remake. I sound like a broken record in this video, but like if you've seen my channel before, you know how much I love the Evil Dead 2013 remake. I think it's the best Evil Dead movie. If there's a remake to really kind of root for, especially in the modern times, to really kind of aim for, it'd be the Evil Dead remake. That film is just so, you know, notoriously just intense and vicious and nasty. It goes at 100 miles an hour. It's got really clever ideas of why they're at the cabin with, you know, kind of Mia being this drug addict that's trying to like go cold turkey and cut it out of her life. And the only way she can do that is by being isolated in this forest, in this cabin. And it brings another layer to the film where her friends don't believe her when all this crazy, scary shit starts to happen, because they just think she's going through a withdrawal and it's her just freaking out because she hasn't had the drugs for ages. So clever. It's such a clever movie. I feel like it brought Evil Dead so wonderfully into the modern era, and it doesn't hold back on the vicious just nastiness of the gore as well. So Evil Dead 2013 is almost like tippy top of the remake spectrum. Of course, we've got remakes from the 80s that some people don't actually know that they're remakes. I'm sure people that watch my channel know about these films anyway. I'm talking about the remake trilogy from the 80s. The John Carpenter's The Thing, The Fly, and The Blob. All are goated for me. Absolute goat level remakes. I think they're fantastic. I love the original films as well, so that always helps. These films obviously take a radical, extreme direction for those original films from the 50s, and I feel like it really adds to the horror there. The Thing being a prime example of taking what The Thing from Another World did and ramping it up into the most fucking brutal, paranoid kind of suspense alien sci-fi movie ever, and giving us one of the greatest horror films of all time. The Fly, the same kind of thing, taking what The Fly from the 50s did with more of a kind of it was kind of a funny film almost. I found it a bit kind of dated and funny, but you take that concept and you bring it to the 80s and you make it, you know, a David Cronenberg film, and it's just body horror grossness, and it just adds that extreme layer to that kind of idea. It's just awesome. And The Blob as well. I love the 50s Blob. I think it's great. It still holds up as a great sci-fi movie now, but when you go to the 80s Blob, it just adds that just that grossness and just that horror that was missing from the 50s one. And, you know, what does this do when it grabs hold of you? It digests you like from the inside. It's just disgusting. But yeah, that film is great as well. So those 80s trilogy are definitive remakes for me. For remakes I didn't really like, Nightmare on Elm Street I thought was a bit dire. For a film that tries to scare you to stay awake, it put me to sleep. I found it kind of boring. It's a shame because I feel like they could have done a lot of good things with that movie if they really kind of try to put the spirit of the original in there. Obviously there's only so much you can do without Robert Englund because he is Freddy Krueger. They went really dark with this version of Nightmare on Elm Street, and I feel like they might have gone a bit too edgy with it, and those things that were kind of very subtly hinted at in the original films that were never brought into the open, and they decided to go full hog with it, and I think it kind of ruins the character for a lot of people. Obviously I can't go into details about that in this video because YouTube would lose its mind. But you get what I'm trying to say here. There's things about Freddy Krueger's past that has only been a little teased at, like, did he go there, or is it just murder? No, in the remake they outright say he went, you know, full hog in that direction, which is disappointing because I feel like it paints the character in a very unlikable light in a way, and I feel like, you know, that character is beloved in the original films. Even though he's the antagonist, you absolutely love Freddy Krueger in the original movies. Yeah, so I think the remake, for me, I found it kind of boring. I found it a bit too edgy and a bit too dark in places in terms of its overall production design. I just felt like it was a bit stale and sterile, and I've never liked it. I've tried to rewatch it numerous times. It's just not for me, the remake of that. There's a lot of remakes out there that are great. There's a lot that are not so great. There's a stigma with horror remakes that I feel like doesn't need to be there. I like that we're getting a fresh take on the original. There's some films out there where I generally don't like the originals that much. For example, Hills of Eyes and The Last House on the Left. I much prefer their remakes. I think their remakes are more or less better than the originals in that regard. That's been the video for Horror Remakes 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to Nige, Paul and Andy for joining in the conversation and being a part of this video. I'll link their channels in the description down below. And as always, I will see you guys next time, I suppose.
Bye.